Every parent wants their kid to grow up to be successful. They want them to be wise. They want them to be decent people. Very few of us say, I want my kid to be the world's first centibillionaire. But the Gates family, although they may not have wished that at Bill Gates' birth, Bill Gates Jr., I should say, that's exactly what happened. For a period of time, Bill Gates Jr. was the richest person in the world. He's now the second richest person, according to Forbes magazine, which may have something to do with the fact that he keeps giving away his money. But we're joined by both Bill Gates Sr. and Jr. today to talk about not just parenting, but the title of the book is Showing Up for Life, and what exactly that means, not just in parenting, but in business practices and all practices as well. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, one of the things which is obviously famously said about your son is that the fact that he didn't finish school. And I got to think to my own son was asking me, Mom, what if I made $1 billion for you, but I got F's on all of my report card, or I didn't finish school? I'd still be mad about the F money. I gotta ask you, as your son was progressing, when he was first starting out and making these decisions, did you ever stop and say, wait, you need a backup plan? You need to make sure that you've gotten your degree, make sure you have something in case this whole computer thing doesn't work out?
We were, normal American parents who expected our child to graduate from college and have a degree. So, yes, basically, in answer to your question, I don't know that we thought in terms of it being a contingent asset of some kind, but we felt like a kind of minimum thing was to have a college degree, and it caused us some concern when it turned out he didn't get one. And
what about you? Did you at some point think this could be the biggest mistake I've ever made?
Well, Harvard was always nice about saying that I could go back, if things didn't work out. Now, a lot of people don't go back, but I love school. I got good grades. Both my high school and college my parents were generous to pay for me to go to were just wonderful. But the opportunity to be the very first, to start something new, that just grabbed my friends and I, so we had to do it.
And obviously, you say in your book how many people come up to you and say, how did you do it? How did you raise this kid to become a man who was so incredibly successful? And you say you don't know.
Well, I always say first that he had a great mother.
There must be things that you point to, though, especially with the next generation coming up, that you think this is what I would do again and this is what I wouldn't.
Absolutely. My parents encouraged me to ask questions. They let me buy as many books as I wanted, took me out to the library. They talked about the work they were doing, and they had adults who came around who were doing very interesting things in construction, politics, other business activities. And there was a sense that, yes, the kids could ask about those things and imagine themselves going off and doing those things. I got to be a page in Congress because of friends of my dad's that let me do that. So I had a great upbringing, and then just paying for my college tuition, that was a big thing, and set me on my way.
I mean, a lot of the things that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation pays for and invests in is educational programs, and especially in low-income areas. I was there at the opening of a after-school program in Detroit where you donated an entire building full of computers. And I got to say that for somebody growing up in one of those neighborhoods, your background and your life must feel like it has no relevance to them. That to a certain extent, they must feel, looking at your family, like that's not my experience. How could I ever recreate that, regardless of whether I have this after-school program or not? How do you deal with that in your philanthropic endeavors?
We try to change it. An important thing is to reverse somehow what happens to kids who grow up in neighborhoods like that and don't have aspirations or senses of self-worth that should occur. And one of the things that are involved in that is the very major effort to start teaching kids to read earlier, and when they go to kindergarten, they're sit next to somebody like Bill and they can tell time and read a book just like he can.
And do you experience this when you go into these neighborhoods, that kids are looking at you like, I don't know anybody like you?
Well, hopefully the American dream is something that is broadly shared. Yeah, I envy the kids that if you are curious, nowadays you can look things up and see lectures online that are far better than the crummy World Book we had at our house. So there are things that have
Hey, your dad
gotten
probably paid a lot for that World Book.
absolutely, and the yearbooks every year we pasted those labels in, and things have come a long ways. If you can get the right self-confidence and motivation, then economic background shouldn't matter. And yet our country's not doing that as well as it should. And it is tragic. All the kids who love to learn like I did should get that chance.
So the other question is, and I mean, this must be really odd, not just to you, but to you as well, that to a certain extent, your son has become such an icon. To one extent, he's like Bill Gates is the epitome of rich. But to another extent, I got to repeat for you a conversation I had with my own kid at the table, and this was at Christmas, and I said, okay, who do you want to give your Christmas money this year? Because we do the whole ritual of donating at Christmas time. And I said, well, I think you can give more than $10. And he goes, who do you think I am, Bill Gates? And I think that there's also this idea that people have to attain a certain amount of wealth or financial security before they give back. How do you deal with that when you're in your philanthropic endeavors, when you're trying to get people to give? How do you deal with people who feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I have nothing to give?
Everything is relative. There is the United Way where you can make a $5 a month payroll deduction. If you have some income and any room at all, it's possible to be charitable. And it all changes, of course, as you go up the economic scale. But again, it does seem to me, frankly, that one of the real geniuses of our American way is the sense that people do make gifts to causes that help other people who are not as well off as they are. And it's an incredibly wonderful characteristic. And I think it's completely appropriate to push down in terms of having everybody who can do something, do something.
This is, the United Way was a cause that your mother was really dedicated to as well. Do you encounter this when you're trying to convince people?
Well, I think if you start doing some giving when you're young, it makes a big difference because you're going to carry that forward. You're going to teach it to your kids. And then if you are successful, the numbers get very large. I think the most praiseworthy givers are people who are actually sacrificing something. In my case, despite the scale of the gifts, I'm not giving up the ability to get a meal, go to a movie, take a nice trip. So, those other givers are the ones who we should be very proud of.
So, clearly you both have children. You have children, yours grown now, but children that are growing up and they're not wanting for things. How do you try to inspire that feeling of selfless giving in someone who doesn't have to worry about that stuff? What do you tell your kids?
Well, the best thing is to actually see the people in need, and whether that's in your community, to go, see a teacher who can't buy the supplies and things that would help them teach better, or to go to the inner city, see the needs there, or to get to Africa and see the slums, see the disease. And so certainly we're going to make sure our kids have a full exposure to those different things. And that, once you know about it, then the human tendency is to want to help.
I was kind of amazed reading your book, Bill Gates Sr., that a lot of the things you talked about in terms of the upbringing in your family life had nothing to do with things someone else might take credit for in their kids. Like you didn't say anything about competitiveness or business plans. You didn't talk about marketing, or you did talk about hard work and all the time that he dedicated and to creating the computer company from the ground up, but you didn't talk about business sense all that much in terms of like the competitiveness of Microsoft and the domination of the industry. That's not in here.
No, it didn't occur to me that I was writing a business journal. I was, this is all about family and friends and civic activity, and I guess it just didn't occur to me to talk about being competitive.
It didn't. Well, let me ask you: was that not part of the family life? Was it more these basic, essential? This is the kind of person I want to be lessons that you took from your parents?
Oh, definitely. The idea of once you're good at something, wanting to put a lot of energy and time into it, and then learning what it means to hire people, that all came later. But the sense of self-confidence that I can try out new things, that starting a company when I was young, that bravery definitely grew out of the basic values that the book does focus on.
Okay, Bill Gates Sr., Bill Gates Jr., thank you so much for coming in.